didn't submit most of the clearance requests until I think
I
we're
would definitely see it before, yeah. Great.
I know this from personal experience because my son is an interactive car driver. And therefore has nothing to say. That's where I keep giving him books, read this book, read that book. And I'm like, I remember those days, but nowadays, without computer access, and that's the other thing, they don't have cache sheds, so they can't even get on the network.
Don't really have a setup, so you might just still.
No, that's fine. It's, I
I think over half the people are watching.
I tried to hear it so you'll get it out if you don't follow along. But if you do follow along,
We're gonna cheer my son as he,
yeah.
does it himself.
I'm gonna do what I do on it. So
Okay. We'll cheer him on.
if I mean, for me personally, if I actually do it, I tend to get a lot more from it, and learn a lot more from it. So, and this is something totally new that we hadn't done in our 3.5 years of running the job. So we're
I think it's a good idea. I just don't have anything I can actually bring to the, everything I have is locked down, so getting the, what y'all listed there just wasn't possible.
I understand.
I know to leave my personal laptop in my car.
Yeah.
It's fine, so.
I tried to convince my wife that we should buy a new laptop for this, but she wasn't going for it.
You said you need to convince your wife to buy her a laptop, but you have twice.
It is, she's the one who uses the laptop. I have a gaming desktop at my house that I use.
That's the problem, my home computer is now a desktop, not a gaming one, because I don't have graphics.
Right.
Card in it,
Mine's gaming quality, but she has a laptop that's really old. It's like a Core 2 Duo or something like that. From like 98, 99. It's still ticking because it's an Asus laptop, but it does randomly shut down now. Super
but-
slow.
I have that feature on my old days.
It has Vista, Windows Vista on it. So not the best, and she's getting frustrated with it. So I was like, look, we can get a new laptop because I could use it for my presentation and you'll have a new laptop. She's like, what kind of laptop would you get? I'm like, a gaming quality one, so that when our kids want to play games, no. I think that's where I made my mistake.
You can get an Asus laptop.
Yeah, we could just get a midline one, something good. But she does stuff where she needs high quality too. She does a lot of video editing and splicing, so she needs that anyways.
So you just use the word gaming.
And she always complains about it. She's always like, why is my computer the slowest? I'll try to do this. It's so slow. I'm like, because it's the oldest. I have 3 computers for I have my main gaming machine, I have a gaming machine for my son, and another one for my other son that are decreasing quality. But I have a third son that's just getting into playing games too. We all play together, so that's why I wanted to get another gaming laptop for him to be on. But I just don't know how to convince the wife. I mean, I don't get it. It's easy for her. It's like I need good kitchen chairs and a bench. And my answer is yes, here. That's the right answer.
Yes, that is the correct answer.
That is the right answer. But I'll say, can we spend that same amount on a laptop? No.
All right, might as well get rolling here. We've got a lot of stuff to cover. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thanks for coming out. This is a new step for us. We haven't actually tried doing any hands-on demos before, so this is a first for us. But hopefully this will go well, and we'll schedule some for the future. I'm going to forego the usual formalities here, just because we got a lot of stuff to cover. Yeah, no pledging of allegiance to the Java user group. But basically, in summary of all that, we're glad you're here. The purpose of this is basically to, yes, I started the video. Purpose is for us to come together, people from across base, so we can kind of intermingle, figure out what we're doing, hopefully have some synergy there. But the main point is make each other better, help us to be the best developers that we can be here. So in the news, I really had one just major item here, kind of took me off guard. But as you know, Java uses this Java Community Process, or JCP for short. And apparently they submitted this JSR 376, which is the jigsaw, which we talked about, I think, last month. This is the modular design that they're going with for Java. Apparently it was voted down. Now, this doesn't mean it's going away. It just means that they're going to have to revise it and resubmit it. But essentially that means that the release date for Java 9 has been delayed yet again. But this time it's not the fault of the developers. It's just the Java community kind of voted it down. And the reasons they did are understandable. I mean, basically it comes down to they were really worried that it was going to totally jack up everybody's code, and it was going to cause a huge amount of confusion and rework. And as we saw, you know, there are ways around it, but I think they were worried that when people saw all those warnings, they were going to freak out, even if they had disabled the modular stuff. And so a lot of the big names like IBM and Red Hat, I think, also voted against it. And here's some of the more detailed ones. They didn't like the automatic modules that was based on the jar name, because it's like, well, what if you have a different jar name? And also the inability to have different versions of libraries in your modules. If you might recall that I said that you could only have one version of a particular library. So if you were using like Apache Math library or something, you'd have to make sure that all of your modules were compatible with that one version of the library, which in my experience, that isn't always achievable. When you're pulling together a bunch of third-party libraries, sometimes you run into issues with that, one depending on an older version of something. So that's why it got voted down. So they're going to go and try to work on that and try to address some of those concerns and then resubmit the proposal. OpenJDK will still has, you know, all of the changes we discussed. I think it's just for the generally available release. They have to go through this process. So the new date is in September. So I guess we'll just wait and see what happens. Hopefully they'll all get it worked out. And just as a interesting sort of side note, apparently James Gosling now works for Amazon Web Services. No one's really sure what he's doing there, but you know, I guess he's going to be doing Internet of Things type of development.
Wasn't he working with the company that's doing the water?
Yeah.
Is he still connected, or?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I didn't get a sense, but I'm guessing, knowing of what I know of him, I'd be real surprised if he would let that one go, because that's kind of his baby, you know. So anyway, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Andy, and we're going to start our hands-on demo. All right, here you go.
Oh, and I forgot to mention, if you've never come to one of our meetings, please sign in so I can get you on the mailing list.
Yes. All right, so a couple things real quick before we get going on this. Don't look at this. So a couple things. This is our first time doing this. I wanted this to be a beginner level thing. So the focus is really on the FX and particularly on the FXML. I'll show you a lot of the common pitfalls with that and how to get around them, and some tricks that you can do with it that are pretty cool. You'll come away knowing a lot more about how to use Scene Builder and FXML to get what you need out of it. But don't laugh at my code. My code did at one point have streams in it, and it had things like getting children of children and using that and such. But when I was going through it last night, I was like, this has the possibility of leading me down something that gets away from the FX and FXML, and I didn't really want to do that. So I painfully to myself, because I love streams, stripped them all out and replaced them with what I would consider bad code. So please, it's not bad, it's just beginner looking code, which is why this is a beginner level thing. But what we're going to do is we're going to, really quick, using FXML, write a tic-tac-toe game together. So, and I already have one that's working here, but we're going to start a new one. So we're going to do a new project. If you're following along, go ahead and do that. Go to JavaFX and see the JavaFX FXML application. Click on that, and then next. Now, this is where we're going to diverge a little bit. I'm going to do one thing, but it's the wrong thing, because this is a common mistake people do, but I really want you guys to do the right thing. So what you guys should do is this one here that says use data. Wait, no, it's on. Maybe don't click this preloader thing because that is not good. But yeah, I think it's create.
That creates a main class.
Right, but there was another one here when I did this the other day. But anyways, okay, maybe you are all going to do the same thing. But let's change the name of this right now. Or actually, let's not. You guys change the name of it to tic-tac-toe or something similar, and I won't. Because that will let me show you what I wanted to show you anyways. So we're going to do finish. It's going to build your project. Now, I'm going to rename it. You guys will have to do this. So the reason why I wanted to do this is you guys should have, hopefully, in your source packages now, you should have tic-tac-toe FXML and tic-tac-toe. Do you have that, or is it?
Tic-tac-toe Java, but it's ML document.
Okay. All right. Then you guys are going to have to do the same thing I did. I swear when I did this on my machine the other day, there was a way to get around this. But this is a common mistake or a common thing that happens anyway, so I just wanted to show you. So what we're going to do is real quick, the FXML is like XML. For those of you who don't know, it's like XML, but there's an editor for it that's really, really good. That's called Scene Builder, and we're going to show you that in a second. But what I really want to do is change the name of both of these real quick. So with this one, we just need to rename, and we're just going to name it tic-tac-toe. And then this one we're going to rename also, but we have to refactor it because it's actual code. So do refactor, rename, do tic-tac-toe controller.
Although at this point, there's probably only one point that's actually reference range, right?
Yes.
The FX ID or whatever.
Yeah, I'm gonna show you that. That's part of why we're doing this. So now that we did that, what we have to do is we have to go in and actually edit the FXML, and we have to do this part by hand. So you need to click open on this one, on the FXML. Actually, that's the wrong thing. We need to do edit, sorry. And then over here, if you look, you'll see that it has FXML document controller still. So we need to change that, because even though we did refactor, and that's why I'm showing you this, because this can be, for new people, I've seen people get stuck on this and be like, it doesn't work, FXML is horrible, because they didn't know that they had to do this. And you can't do this through Scene Builder, you have to actually manually do this. So, whoops. So if we just change that to be tic-tac-toe controller, just like you have it over here, that's a first step. Now, the next thing we have to do is in this one, what you got for you guys will be tic-tac-toe Java. Open that one up, and it has the same kind of deal down here, but this time it's the FXML. So you need to change that to tic-tac-toe. So this is what actually kicks off the FXML. So very important that it be changed here. And the errors that you get if we don't change it, very cryptic and hard to understand. So that's why I'm showing you guys this, because this is, a lot of people get tripped up right at the very beginning on this stuff. So now that we've done those two things, let's go ahead and save everything. And then we're going to open Scene Builder if you haven't already. I just did. And you'll see that it has this going on. I like to maximize Scene Builder. So first thing, yes.
So what we just did, is that likely only be needed once per project?
Yes. You'll only have to do that once per project. We'll be adding another controller later on, and I'll show you it's much easier after the first one. So what I like to do is immediately make this kind of a reasonable size. Whoops. And you can't, I always try, but you can't move it around yourself. It automatically centers it here. Unless it goes off the screen, then you can move it, but I like to make it a reasonable size like this. Now, once we've done that, this is kind of just stuff that it comes with, but we don't need that, so just go ahead and delete that. I said delete that. Okay. All right, and then if you look over here on the left, this is kind of your list of things that you have. You'll see that there's a label. It's invisible right now. We need to also delete that. So click on the label on the left. And I think it's actually just, so one thing that we didn't think about when setting this up is Scene Builder is really bad at resources. It is a resource hog, and it will slow everything else down. Mine's going to be slower than yours probably because we're currently filming this and playing it on the internet. So I got a bunch going on this laptop, and Scene Builder is hogging all the resources. I hope it's not messing up the transmission. But now what we're going to do is, so if you were here when we did FX before, I think it was almost a year ago actually, there's a lot of different containers and controllers and stuff that we can use. First, actually, what I want to do, though, is I told you guys to get Controls-FX. Now, the reason I told you to do that, we're not actually going to use any of that, but I want to show you how to add it to Scene Builder because this is something that a lot of people don't know how to do. So if you see this little gear right here to the right of the library, if you push on that, then this is different than on mine. On mine, I can. Oh yeah. So yes. Didn't I select it? So if we do that, if we add it, so this is very powerful and a very good thing. If we add it through this gear here, but there's not a lot of info on the web how to do this, so a lot of people don't even know you can do this to Scene Builder. Now we have this custom bar that has all of the Controls-FX stuff in there, so we can just drag and drop them in. So I wanted to show you guys that, and that's the main reason why I had you download that. Another Controls-FX is a good library with good widgets in it. Another one that I really like is JavaFX. So if you find that one has a lot of good stuff in it too.
I've been trying to talk to the laser guys because I know they coded up their console and FX. It'd be nice if we could get a standard widget library for the various projects here.
Right.
And then we could install them that same way.
Right. Exactly. We can do that. You can make your own widgets and install them that way.
So what step did we just go through? I'm lost. You went to the gear, you selected the library manager.
Right. I went to the gear, did jar FXML manager, and I did manually add library FXML from system. I went to where I downloaded, where Mike downloaded Controls-FX and just opened that library. And then it automatically added all of those widgets in under this custom bar up here.
Okay, so manually added library brings up something like the group ID, artifact ID, am I in the wrong place?
Yeah, you're on the one from the repository, I think.
Did you do this add library FXML from file system? And are you using the Gluon one? Are you using Gluon Scene Builder?
Where loaded it.
You probably are, unless you have the other one installed.
Yeah, I'm using the one, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So,
Yeah, Mike can help you out.
thank you.
No problem. So what we're going to do is we're going to add an H box just right here to the top. And what H box is that when you add stuff in it, it expands horizontally and it adds them to the right of whatever you have, well, in the order from left to right that you add them. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take this H box and we're going to expand it. Because this, so as you can see down here, the main pane is an anchor pane, and we're adding an H box to that anchor pane. If we go over here to layout, then you have this little thing. What this is how far from each edge do you want it to start? So what we can do with this is put in actually zeros for all these edges. And now, if I have my H box, you can see it goes all the way to the top and all the way from left to right. So I didn't do the bottom one because then it would just fill the whole thing. We're going to be doing that in a little bit though. But you probably don't want to just put it on the bottom because, well, we will later, but for this one, we're not trying to fill up the whole screen. So you don't want to what you can do is do like this and it will automatically put in where it is right now, which is 670 pixels from the bottom. We really don't want to do that because if you do that, when you resize, it has to have some place to go. It has to have something to shrink. So if you click that and then you try to resize, it's going to always be 670 from the bottom. So if you shrink it any in the up way, it's going to automatically take all of that shrinkage. And we want it to shrink proportionally, not just go automatically, all of that gone, which is why we don't really want to have it connected to the bottom right now. So now we're gonna, you missed something? Yeah, we're gonna undo a lot of that anyways in a second. So if you go to the properties, there's an alignment. We want to make it top center. What this is telling us is we want to put all of our children that we're going to put in this and starting in the center and have them kind of push their way outwards. So set that to top center. And then after we do that, we're going to add labels. Now, for some reason, and this gets me every time even though I've been using FXML for a long time, for some dumb reason, a label is considered a control, not a container. Every time I think of a label, I think, oh, that's a container. It contains text, but it's not. It's a control. So to find label, you got to click on controls over here, and there's label hanging out in controls. No idea why they made it a control, and it actually causes a lot of problems if you want to do stuff inside of the label because it's not a container, so you can't be adding stuff to the label like that. It's a control. So we're just going to toss 3 of these bad boys in there for right now. And you'll see they automatically stack up from left to right. They're in down here. And you can actually add them down to this area also or drag them to the screen either way. So now what we're going to do is let's change the first one to tick and give it a space after it. Change the second one to tack with no spaces. And we'll make the third one toe with a space in front of it. The reason why I did that is to keep it centered. What we could have also done, except for I forgot to delete the label on tack. What we could have also done, and we'll be doing this a bit later, is adding spaces into the H box that will automatically space them out. But if you use spaces and it's a word like this and you really want it to be one phrase, then it's gonna look normal to the person reading it because it's the right size spacing for the letters that you're using. Does that make sense? Instead of trying to figure that out using pixel spacing. Now, this all seems kind of kind of basic, I know, but what I'm hoping with this next part is that we're going to hit a problem that is in Scene Builder. It's been in all of them. I keep hoping they fix it. Even when Gluon took it over, it still propagates, but it's a random problem. So what we're going to do now is we're going to try to change each of these. Whoops. So these parts right here, the font size and the fill color. So just pick any 3 colors as the fill. But the font size, this often has a problem. What I want to do is make this 55, and the problem usually comes in right here when I try to go bold. So that one worked fine. Let's see. If somebody has the problem, please let me know. What it will do is it will not register the bold. You'll know because you'll be like, hey, I clicked on bold and it didn't do it. I'm going to try to do this one because I've noticed that if I do a middle one later, it has a more likelihood to mess it up. So, it worked. So as you can see, my toe, it did not get bolded. Even though you guys all saw me click it, it didn't go bolded. So I don't know why it does that. The way that you fix it, once you get into that kind of a thing, it's really hard to convince it to make it bold. So what I found works is you have to actually click in the style, backspace it all out, and then use the down arrow key, go past bold, down to bold italic. Dang it. It really is a pain. Trying to get this to go, and as you can see, I don't know why it has this problem, but it will take a while to get it to take. In fact, it's looking like I'm going to be wasting a bunch of time, so I might just move on. Is anybody else having this issue?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's very common. It's in all the versions. It happens on all of the different operating systems too. It's very annoying. I don't know why they haven't fixed that yet. At first I thought maybe it's just a Unix thing or a Linux thing. Yes.
Is it an actual problem or is it just a display? Like, does the actual generated code lose the bolding, or is
It does not put the bolding in the generated code is the problem. We can try that. Can't tab out of it. Yeah, so it's happening on 2 of mine, 2 out of 3. So the only reason why I wanted to bold it really was to show you guys that could happen and that it is a problem. And some of the ways I've found to kind of get it to work. If you mess around with it enough, it will eventually take the bold, but it's painful, as you can see. Another thing that sometimes happens on Linux and Unix systems, this is obviously Windows, is it will also mess up the sizing, so it won't take the sizing either. On Windows, it actually works. I've never had it not work nice on Windows, but on every Linux and Unix version I've used, it's messed it up. So it's a similar problem, same thing. Anyway, so I wanted to show you guys that could happen, and fortunately it worked. I was kind of hoping that it would actually have an error, but it worked. So I got to show you guys that common problem. So now this is very important. If you click on the H box, so if you look in the bottom left over here, we have the H box highlighted. So you can either click on it down there or actually click on it up in the screen and go to the layout portion again. You'll notice that it has this part right here over on the right that has the preferred width, preferred height, min width and height, and max width and height. If you're planning on letting this be resized in any way, you really, really want to know if you want to use set heights or set widths. In most cases, you do not. So the easy way to do that is click this gear over here and just say reset the default. If something is not sizing right for you and when you shift stuff around, check and make sure that it and all of its parents up to the root are all set to just use computed values. That almost always is what you want to do and how you want to go. Use computed values is way better. So I wanted to show you guys that. That's a common place where people get messed up too, because they think, oh, we need to have these size and I need to have a min and a max. You don't. You really just want to use the min or the use computed values, because it will make it exactly right and it will allow for resizing in almost every case. I've not gone astray with that too many times. So now what we're going to do is, now I knew we were doing this on purpose, but we really don't want to have an anchor pane as our top thing, because then we have to figure out all the anchors for everything and we'll lose everything. We really want to have something that this H box is in. So what we want to do is come over here and click on this H box and then right click on it. I said right click on it. Okay. Yeah, okay. So right click on it and then it comes up with this wrap in, and you know what? Let's put it in a V box. That seems like a good thing, because then we could put stuff below it and it will automatically stack. So let's wrap this H box in a V box. So now you'll see it automatically put a V box around the H box. And if you look over here, you'll notice, if you remember right, on the H box, which I'm now on, we used to have the anchor pane thing where we could anchor it to the sides and all that, but since the H box is not directly in a anchor pane anymore, it can't do that. It doesn't know how to do that. But what happened is, since we wrapped it, the V box just assumed, hey, you must have wanted what you had before. So it took those same anchors and actually applied them to the V box. So as you can see, all of our zeros are currently set. Now in this case, we actually do want to change this bottom one, and we want to make it 0 also, because we're going to use this V box as sort of our main pane. And actually we could, at this point, get rid of the anchor pane altogether, but then your window is going to be very, very small and it's going to be growing as you add stuff to it. So I like to keep the anchor pane at least until I'm done. So we set that to 0. And now, as you can see, our V box fills the whole anchor pane, and the H box is still just at the top.
Anchor pane set all of its constraints would be resized manually.
Yes, yeah. You don't want to go into. So, as you can see, the H box and the V box also kept all the use computed sizes. If we hadn't changed that first, it wouldn't have kept that. The anchor pane will actually have sizes, and they're the size of this box. So if I move it, they'll change. If we set that to use computed size, it will also shrink it down to just the bare minimum it needs automatically, and then it'll grow on us. Which some people might like that. That drives me nuts when I'm trying to code in it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add another H box, and we want to add it below. So that's a container. We want to add it below the H box that we have inside of the V box. Now, we could just bring it over here and drop it, but what I want to do is show you how you could do it here. So if you just actually bring it over the V box and let go, it will automatically put it at the end. If I wanted it to be before the other H box, I could actually move it. You can see you can get it. It's kind of tricky to get it, but if you get it right like that, where it has the line coming out of the V box, then it will put it right at the top and bump the other H box down. We don't want that right now, so we'll leave it here. So, let's see. Okay, so now I want to take this H box and I want to also make its alignments to be centered. Not top centered this time, but centered. And I want to add 2 labels to it for the same reason as we did above. And then for this one, we'll just go ahead and make it a capital X for right now. So even though that's obviously got to be programmed later, we're going to do that. And then, and you guys don't have to follow this exactly. You can do what you think, but I'm going to make this one 24 and make this one 36. So, and I might try and bold them and see if that works. And decided that these two can go ahead and be bolded. So we're good there. So now we're starting to get into the coding stuff. Now we know that this needs to change, right? It needs to be able to change from X to Y. So in order to do that, what we need to do is go over here to the code portion down here on this label, and we need to give it an FX ID up here. This label one is actually what was already in the controllers, that visible label that we deleted. So we don't want to really use that one. We want to use something that's more descriptive. So I always do kind of a thing that describes what it is and then put an abbreviation of the type it is. So I'm naming it player, capital L, BL. So that way I can look at it and know, okay, that's a label, and it's the label that holds the player when I'm back in the controller, which we're beginning to in a second. So now, all right, so now what we're going to do, this is going to seem kind of weird, but we're going to go back to containers, and we're going to add another HBox here, and let's make sure that, see, it automatically set the sizes. We want to reset those to default, and automatically shrink it to nothing because there's nothing in it yet. Probably want to do that to this one too also, actually. So now, this is, we're not really going to use CSS because I didn't want to go into CSS, but we do need to use a little bit of CSS. So what we're going to do is, well, first, I need to add a VBox to this HBox. And since I've already shrunk it down, I pretty much have to do it here because I'm never going to get it in the screen there. And I did want it to be centered, so I'm going to go back to the HBox and make it centered. And now my VBox should be in the middle there. And I want this VBox to have a black background. So right over here in the properties portion, if you're on the properties tab, there's kind of CSS cheat areas. So we can use the style sheet to load in a CSS file, and then if we do that, we'll actually be able to pick using this drop down from things that are in that style sheet. But we're not doing that in this thing. What we're going to do is just use this, which is just basically add a FX CSS to this one thing. We're going to do the background color one and just type in black in this second field here, and voila, our VBox is now a black background. And it does still have size, but that's okay for right now. We're going to fix that in a minute. So the next thing that we want to do, now what this is this is kind of where we're going to draw our board, just so you guys know where we're going with that. So we're going to draw our tic-tac-toe board. And tic-tac-toe boards, right, they got to have the hash pattern. Well, this is a cool trick that you can use to just kind of cheat stuff like that. So what we're going to do is give this thing a spacing of 10. You can see spacings in layout. It's kind of near the top. Just give it a spacing of 10. What that means is anything I set in there is going to be 10 pixels apart from anything else I set. And since it's a VBox, it means it's going to offset them by 10 pixels as I add them in. So now that I've done that, now what I want to do is add an HBox to that VBox. So I'll just drag it in here, add HBox to it. Now on this HBox, I also want to set my spacing to 10, not 100, just 10. So that way it's going to put a 10 pixel space between any things I put in it horizontally. Does that make sense to everybody? All right. Now what I'm going to do is I think you guys are going to think what happens here in a second is pretty cool. So I'm going to add a single button to my H box, and I'm going to actually do it down here. So now I have a single button in my H box, and I'm going to go ahead and to make the text of this a single space. It can also be nothing, but a space just works good because it just does, I think. And let's see. I want to make the font, because this is where we're actually going to be letting them select where they want to go. I want to make this kind of big, so we're going to set it to about 55. Try and make it bold if it'll let us. Did it stick? Yes, it did. Okay. So now we have a button here with the space in it, and the reason why I kept a space in it is because it actually forces it to draw that, instead of if you just have nothing, it won't make it show the height and stuff as you and change the font size. So at least I don't think it will. Maybe it will, I don't know. But we want these to actually have a hard width because X and O are different sizes. So we want it to have a hard width, and the width that we really want it to have just happens to be about 125. So we're going to put in a preferred width of 125 on this button. So now what we're going to do is we're going to actually go back to the code portion. And we're going to get into this tic-tac-toe controller right here. So what a controller is it's kind of, except for I'm not opening it up. Okay. What a controller is it's kind of your interface with the FXML code. So everything that happens between those two has to go through its controller. A lot of people make big mistakes with the controller. It should be one FXML, one controller. Never anything different. You can, if you really hate yourself, you can do multiple FXMLs to one controller, and you could do multiple controllers to one FXML. Really bad idea both ways. One controller, one FXML document. That's how it should be. Always. It will save you so much headache. The downside is on one of my projects that for real projects, we have a main controller, kind of that handles the main first scene of everything, and it is currently about 3,000 lines long. So they can get kind of huge if you got a lot going on, but it's still better than trying to juggle multiple controllers, trust me.
You can still use multiple controllers in
Yeah.
a single file. It's just
Right.
when you start your application, you have to finagle a little bit to pull in another controller.
Right, and I'm actually going to show you guys how to embed an FXML with its own controller into this pretty soon here.
The default is to try to set it up with its own main, and we don't want that.
Right. So some things that we need to do on this controller. If you remember right, we deleted the label. So I'm just going to keep the add FXML that you see here tells this code that, hey, that's an FXML, it has an FXML ID. And if you remember, we made one, and I called mine player, capital LVL. So we probably want to add that here. And I'm just going to go ahead and get the button one that they already had and add what I really want to be in there. But I forgot to put that code in my... Oh, no, never mind. I just remembered. I just want to gut it for right now. So just delete everything in it. We don't want it to do what it was doing. And then we'll go back over to Scene Builder. So now what we want to do is we want to add that, even though there's nothing in that handler, button handler, we're just going to add it. So if you click this down arrow, because it's in there, it will automatically pick it up from its controller and put it in here. So we can just add it right in there, and now it's in there. So now whenever that button gets pushed, it's going to do the code that's in that handler. Now, and this part is cool. what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to come down here and right click on this button.
Question,
Yes.
and it's probably simple. How do I connect the scene builder to that particular code?
How do you connect scene builder?
Like you say, I clicked and it said, oh, handle button action.
Yes, it does it by if you remember at the beginning, we changed the in the FXML, we changed it to have the name of the controller that it uses. That's how it gets it.
Okay, good.
Okay, so
Where did we go again to get the button? Again,
it's in code on the right here.
yeah.
So in this code, and it's on action. So the code tab's usually the one on the bottom.
Right.
You finding it?
Well, I'm fine with that.
Oh, it's not actually showing the one you have?
Well, because I don't have one.
Oh, well, you need to have one or it won't show it. You can just type one in or whatever. It will give you a warning. It gives you a warning anyways. So okay, and I wanted to talk about this, so this is funny. As you can see, if we click up here, it tells you kind of things that, for the most part, you can just ignore this, this little warning thing. But the funny thing is it tells you, like, there's no class ID player label, because when we first made it, there wasn't one in the controller. And sometimes there is one in the controller, but it doesn't see it right away. So here's the funny part. You'll get a warning if you add an ID to Scene Builder that's not in the code. It'll give you this little warning and tell you, hey, you did this. But you know what? That doesn't even matter. If you add the wrong ID to here, it does not care. If you have an ID here and it's not in the controller, nothing bad will happen. The reverse, though, is not true. If you add an add FXML like label and give it a name to the controller that isn't in Scene Builder in the FXML code, it will be very upset. It won't give you any warnings, but if you try to compile and run, it will not do it, and the warnings that it gives you are very, very cryptic. So if you get some gibberish that you don't understand when you're trying to compile and build, check and make sure all of your add FXMLs actually exist in the FXML. That's a huge place where a lot of people really get hung up on this. But back to what we were doing. So right click on this button, and it takes a while on this one because of all the things we have running. Now there's this duplicate. So this is amazing. I love this. If I hit duplicate, it automatically made an exact copy with everything that we've already set, everything, and put it right next to it in the same HBox. So I'm going to do that again. Do another duplicate. Okay, so now I have one whole row of my buttons. But, you know, tic-tac-toe is 3 by 3, so that's cool. I'll just come up here to this HBox, right click on it, and do duplicate on it twice.
Cool. How do I undo it?
Control Z works.
Okay, good. I hope it would.
So now, you guys see why we did the background. You see why we added the spacing and everything. We got our tic-tac-toe hash board. We got 9 buttons, and we have a tic-tac-toe board almost ready to go. So pretty cool. It didn't take a lot of time using Scene Builder. If we were trying to do this in Swing, we'd still be like trying to do this part up here. So it's kind of cool that way. Now what we need to do is, let me not get ahead of myself. Okay. Now what we need to do is we need to add an ID to each one of these. Now, for this particular one, actually, let's do it in the controller first. So let's go back to the code, to the controller code. Let's go over here. So add an FXML private, but do autocomplete so that it automatically puts in your imports. And now what I'm going to do here is this is a bad programming practice, but sometimes in dealing with this kind of FX and FXML, this is a good idea. So I'm going to do this, even though normally I would advise like heavily against this. I'm going to go ahead and enter, go down to the next line because I want to make this more readable for myself. So what I think we want to do is we want to do top, middle, and bottom, left, center, and right. So we're going to do that. So this would be T for top and L for left. And then I'm going to add a D for it's on the diagonal. You're going to understand why we're doing this later. So that's one of my button names. Then the next one would be top center. And the next one would be top right. And it's on the diagonal, but it's on the diagonal going up, not down. So I'm going to give this one a U. Whoops, not what I wanted. Go down to the next line and do middle, left, and it's not on any diagonals, so we'll just leave that one out like that. And middle, center, and this is on both diagonals, so I'm going to give this one a C. You'll understand why I'm doing this in a second. And middle, right. Go down to the next row and do bottom, left, and this is on the upslope diagonal, so I'm going to give it a U. Bottom center, which is not on any diagonals, and bottom right, and it's on the downward diagonal. So now I kind of have, the reason why I did this like this is they're all placed where they're going to be on my board. So whenever I need to see, okay, which button is what, I can quickly look at this and be like, oh yeah, okay, it's that one. So if we save that and go back in the scene builder now, if you click on a button, you'll see it only has BRD. That is a problem with Scene Builder. If you do commas for FXMLs, if you do comma breaks, it only gets the very last one. So we're only picking up the BRD, so we can't automatically enter them all, except for we can automatically enter the bottom one. But if we had actually done an @private button or @FXML private button for each one of them, we'd have a long list of all 9. We could select all 9. Yes.
Just a back question is, this is a nice example of like 9 buttons, but say you have something more complex, it's like 50 to 100. Are there ways to link them to an array?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can do all that. Normally with buttons, you don't even give them an ID. So I should probably say that you only want to give things in the FXML an ID if you're planning on manipulating it on the GUI. So if you're planning on changing like its text or the way it looks or its size or anything like that, that's the only reason you would give it an ID.
So if it was a very well actioned button on a GUI, then you would want to have an FX ID for it, so you can change that later.
Right.
But if it's just static, then all you're doing is handling the action event.
Right. So don't just give everything an ID. That's another common mistake a lot of people make is they just go willy-nilly with IDs. Not everything has to have an ID, and that will cause you problems if you do. The reason why we're giving these IDs is because when somebody clicks on it, we need to set this to either X or O. So we're going to be manipulating it, so it needs to have an ID. The same reason why we gave this an ID, because it needs to change depending on whose turn it is. So we're going to be manipulating that. But none of the rest of this needs an ID. So real quick, put in all of your IDs. Just make sure you get them all right because, as I said, if you have an @FXML and there isn't a copy of that over here, you will get funny errors that are really hard to read. In fact, I'll probably show you that in a second. And I've tried to do it already to myself, actually.
You're getting all these data in the field noise.
Yep.
That's okay, right?
That's all right. Don't worry about those at all. All right. So this one I'm gonna intentionally mess up. And then another thing is, with Scene Builder, nothing happens until you hit save. So another place where a lot of people get really confused is they'll make changes in Scene Builder, they'll make changes in the code, then they'll go and try to run the code, and it won't work. Why? Because they never saved their Scene Builder. So that's a very common beginner mistake. I actually still make it myself a lot of times, but I usually quickly realize, oh, I didn't save my Scene Builder. But let's see. I don't think it shouldn't mess up now because we don't actually do anything with this variable, but let's see. Let's run a test and see what happens. And you guys should probably test yours now. Yeah, see, so it didn't mess up yet because we're not actually invoking that. But later on, it will mess up. So we'll play with that later. Let's fix it for right now. All right.
Can you remind me where to set the background color?
Yes, on the VBox in properties in this style, make it -FX background color. You can select that from this left field and then just type black in there. Or if you want your field to be, you know, tomato, then you can make it tomato. Any of the standard FX colors, whatever. Now I somehow, okay. Change it back to black because that just looks better. All right, so so everybody should test now. Make sure you save it and test it and make sure you're not getting any weird errors. You shouldn't be getting any errors yet. And now we're actually going to get into the code portion of it. So we need to add a couple of methods here. You guys can do whatever you want with this, or you can just do what I did. Again, I try to do it the simplest way to avoid kind of causing confusion or whatever. So we need one that checks to see if, hey, is my row, did I win? Did somebody win when I made the selection? So we're going to do a method called check row, and it doesn't need to return any, check row doesn't need to return anything. And we'll go ahead and send which row it is we want it to check, so that we're not checking everything. So then we'll just do a quick switch statement on row. And some fun if statements here. So if you remember, the top one is TLD dot get. I said dot. Hey.
Do you mean case?
What? Oh,
Yes.
yeah, I forgot the case statement though. Yeah, we need a case first. Case. So we're going to do case T for top. And I don't know why it's, there we go. Okay. Just do get text. And use dot equals, don't use equals equals. Not a good thing to do. And then we'll do top center, get text. So now we're checking to make sure, see if the top left and the top middle are the same. And we also, at the same time, so we need an and, want to check if the top middle so we'll do an equals on that, is equal to the top right, which is TRU. All right, if it is, then we want to set some win variable equal to true, so whoops, not true. So we'll do that, and then it's going to complain, go up here. I like to put my standard variables above the add fxml variables, but it doesn't really matter. We'll make a private boolean here, and we'll set that equal to false, because nobody wins when you first start the game. So now we have that to true. We'll do a break. And now, since I'm a coder and I like to take shortcuts, because that's what we do, I'm just going to copy all of this and paste it twice. I'm going to be mad that it didn't do that, but hit Shift-Tab and change this one to N and this one to B for middle and bottom. Then we change this to ML, and it doesn't have a diagonal. Change this one to MCC. This one to MCC. And this one to MRight. And on this one, it becomes bottom right diagonal down, bottom center, and bottom left up. So that's all we need for that. And now that will check the row for us. Now I'm going to take this whole method, because again, computer scientists, lazy, don't like typing a lot of code. And I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to change this to check call, so that we can check if, I did make a capital, okay. And I got rid of my parentheses somehow. Change this to call. And then the columns, if you remember, were left, center, and right. So now I need to go down. So the first column's TLD, MC, not N. Oh. Yeah, you're right, ML. And MLU. So, yeah. See, but I can always go up here and check. Nope, it's BLU, not MLU. So I'm glad I checked that. So then the next one, the center one, that's going to be TC, not with an M, MCC, and bottom center, not with the B. Not M. Thank goodness for IDEs. And the bottom one is going to be bottom left, bottom center. No, sorry, that's the right one. Yeah. So top right, and that's the up one. Middle right. Middle right. And actually that one is bottom right down. Yep, okay. So now I got a check for columns and a check for, do you need my paper? You can have my paper. So I have the code for all those in there. Now, so now I have a way to check for rows and to check for columns, right? And finally, I need one to check for diagonals, but this one has to be completely different. So we'll do private void check diag. Still going to get a string though. All right, so on this one, what we're gonna do is we need to check both diagonals, right? And we need to always check them because if it's in the middle one, then we need to check both of them. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do if D, this is a cool trick that I figured out not too long ago. You can actually do stuff on strings that you put in, and it's actually better to start with the string and do an equals on that than it is to go the other way. I don't know why, but I found that it works better that way. So we're gonna see if D equals diagonal. So are we doing a downward diagonal? And we also, if it's in the center, then we also need to check the downward diagonal. So we'll do C equals diagonal. So now we're checking to see if we're doing the downward diagonal, which would happen if it has a D or C. You need to do the actual check. So if top left downward diagonal, text equals, and then we want to do the middle one. And we want to check if the middle one equals the bottom one, right one, so bottom right D. So now, to get text on that though. Do a quick look. So if we have all those, then win is going to be equal to true. And not went, win. I got fat fingers. So now we're going to, I'm just going to copy all of this because now we want to check the other way and post it. I don't want to do an else if because I always want to run through both in case it's center. Change this to a U. We can keep the C one. Change this to bottom left upwards. Can keep the two middle ones and top right upwards. Okay. Yes. Void would work a lot better than Vivid. All right, so now we can check. And this is by far the majority of the code we're going to be writing today. So we have a check for all three ways. Pretty simple. Now what we need to do is let's go back up to that button action that we left empty before, and we already set this guy in there and everything. So what we're going to do is, oops, actually it doesn't matter. Get a button. So start a new button, and we're going to cast it to button. This will all make sense in a second, and then we're going to do event.getSource. So what we're doing here is we're getting the actual button that they clicked on to start this, and we're saving that to a button. We're saying, look, I know for sure this is going to be a button that I'm getting, so I'm casting it to button and I'm saving it as a button. So now I can mess around with it. A very important and handy step to do. So now if they click on the button, obviously the first thing I want them to do is set the text to their player. So I already have player label dot get text. So now whichever player is currently the player, it's going to set the button to that, right? Then I probably also, I don't want to let the other player cheat, so I probably want to disable the button. So let's do, it's set disabled. And go ahead and make that true. So now we're putting our tag on there. We're making it disabled so the other player can't come and change my X to an O, because that wouldn't be very cool or fair. And now we're going to quickly check something. So if X, so what we're going to do now is we're going to set the color of it too, because an X and an O, that's cool, but let's go ahead and set the color. So let's see if it's an X. And if it is an X, then let's set the color of it. So we're going to do that by doing button set style. Oops, style. This is kind of, normally I wouldn't do this. I would use a CSS file, because if you use a CSS file, you can actually remove the style after you set it, which is going to actually be more difficult. We are going to have to remove it later, but it's more difficult to do it if you do it like this, but it's not impossible. So do FX background dot color. So this is the same thing you would put in a CSS sheet with it. So there we go. So now if they do that, then if it's X, then it's going to make it blue. And then I'm just going to copy that piece of code. So clearly, if it's not player X, then it must be player O, because there's only two players, so there's no sense checking that. Paste that and change it to, you guys can make it whatever you want. I'm colorblind, but my wife told me spring green is a good color. So we're going with spring green. So now we're changing it, and we can test it out real quick and see what we got. Hopefully everything compiles okay. And see what happens. Okay, so when I press it, it's blue, but it's very dark. And we're not changing the player, so they all go blue, but hey, we know something's happening, so that's kind of cool. Kind of disappointed that it got wider on me, though. Not sure why that's happening, but we can fix that. Anyways, so it got darker. That's a problem that we just saw. What we need to do to fix that is we need to make it so the opacity, because what's happening is when it's disabled, the disable is actually making it darker. So what we're going to do is set its opacity so that it can't go dark on us like that. Come on. So set opacity, and this is a double, so make it 1.0. And now if we test it again, it's not that dark blue anymore. It's still blue, but not dark blue. This wasn't supposed to happen. I thought that it would be wide enough. I must have made a mistake in my figures. But anyways, one cool thing I do want to show you because of this is you'll notice as this top one stretches because the X is too big, it actually forces all the rest of them to resize too. The top row is resizing unevenly, but all of the other rows are resizing also. That's because we didn't have hard values set. That's part of why it's a good idea to just let it automatically do it on its own. So now what we're going to do is we're actually going to do use our check row, see if somebody won. So we'll actually call that, and we'll send the way that we want to do this is we'll do button dot. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to cheat. We're going to get its ID, and this is a cool trick that I do a lot. And this is why we named them so weird. It's all going to make sense here. And we're going to get a subs, because that's a string. So we're just going to get a substring of that. And we'll start at 0 and go to 1. So now what we're doing is these button IDs up here, it's only sending a T, M, or B, right? Which is what we wanted, because it's only getting the very first character in its ID. So now we're going to send that, and as we know, our case statement handles a T, M, or B, and it's all good. So we need to do pretty much that same thing for check call. If you do a get ID on something that doesn't have an ID, bad things will happen. So try to avoid that. So on this case, we want to get the second digit. So we'll set it to 1, 2 to get the second digit, which will be like the L, C, or R. And of course, now we need to do the check diag, but we don't just want to call check diag because not all of them have a diagonal. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to do a quick if check here and see if it's, we're going to do a quick if check on its get ID and see if its size is larger than 2. So if it's has more than 2, which means it's got to be on the diagonal because it has that extra character, then we do want to send that extra character. We don't want to try to do that if that character doesn't exist because we'll get a null pointer when we try to send it. So now is where we want to call check diag. And on this one, I don't need to go. I can just use this one and just put a 2 in here. So if you just have one character on substring, it just says start there and go to the end. Well, the second character, it's always 0, 1, 2. So it's always going to be the third one because there isn't any that have 4. So that'll work. All right, so now, why are those all offset? How did I mess up the... Don't know what I did to mess up the spacing. Try to fix the formatting. Yeah. Alrighty. So now let's see. Now we need to have something eventually for if they won. So we need to have an if win, but we won't actually put anything in there right now. But we do know that this is where we want to check that. But we do know if nobody did win, we want to do something. So let's have an else off of that. And what do we want to do if they didn't win? Well, are you going to need my paper after? So the else is we need to check and see which player is currently going. So we want to check and see if X, capital X, equals player label type, the player label, because remember that's where we keep our, so we'll get the text off of that. So now we know it's player X. If this is true, then it's player X that went. So if it was player X, we need to change it to player change it to an O there. And while we're at this, we might as well make that colored the same way. So we'll do style. Now on this one, we want to do a FX text fill, not a background fill, otherwise bad things. And make it spring green. Except for all of that needed to be in quotes, and I did not put it in quotes. So now what we're doing there is if player X is the one that just went, we're changing it to O and changing the color of that to be spring green also. And if it wasn't player X, then it must have been player O. So we just need to do the exact opposite. I'm just going to cut and paste this because lazy programmer. So make this an X and make this blue. It does need to be a capital X, thank you.
You're on the second part, you're hitting twice.
Oh. I make a lot of silly mistakes like that, especially when I'm coding in front of with people watching. Something about that. So actually now we're done with that. Actually I want to do one thing real quick. I want to make this, since this is what it's going to start as, go ahead and try to make this a little bit bluish so it doesn't look too shocking. And we're going to save that because otherwise it won't show up. And now we should actually have a fairly functioning game. So I can go O. And somebody won, but currently we have no way of knowing that anybody won. We know that it is marking that somebody won, but I can still keep playing. And but it doesn't work right after you keep playing because it's stuck on X because it keeps saying, oh, somebody won, somebody won. I don't need to switch players because somebody won. So yeah, so we have a fully functioning game currently, but it's not, it's missing a few things that we think it should have. So let's add some way of saying, hey, somebody won. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to add a label here. So I'm going to add a label over here. I'm going to set its size to 24 because I think that's the same. Change this to as 1 with a space in front. Okay, so now, and maybe try and make it bold, if it'll let me. Okay, so now we have this, but Go player X has 1, that's not cool, so we're going to need to change this one too. So we need to give it an ID, so we'll call this one the turn label. How did I get to the beginning? I must accidentally hit home. So we'll call this one turn label, and we probably don't want this one to stick around all the time, so we need to give it an ID because we want to manipulate it. So we'll label this one 1 label. All right, so now we have those. Now let's go back to, let's save this so that they're actually there. Let's go back to our controller and add those labels in. I personally like to use, normally you wouldn't do this, but I like to use commas in this in FXML because otherwise it starts to get out of hand with the number of new lines you have. So I will just stack them in like this. So we got turn label and 1 label, not 1/label. So that is not going to work. Good catch. This is why peer reviews are important. All right, so we have turn label and 1 label in the controller. We have them in the FXML. Now see. Yes. So now we're going to go down to this one that was already there called initialize. Now what initialize does is, one thing about controllers is they do not have a constructor. They cannot have a constructor because of the way that they are and what they do. You cannot have a constructor for a controller. It will not work. The closest you can get is this initialize. What this initialize is as soon as the fxml is done building, any code that you have in initialize will do its thing. So as soon as it's done, all the code in initialize will happen. So that gives you something sort of close to a controller, but it always runs, and that's just how it is. So in here, what we want to do is we want to manage the win label. We want to actually bind it. So we're going to take the win label and get its managed property. Yeah, sorry.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. Get its managed property, and we're going to bind that to its this is something you guys will be doing a lot if you're doing fxml or fx in general. We're going to bind that to its visible property. Now, I did this on purpose. I added this on purpose. Why am I doing this? Why do I need to bind its managed property to its visible property? Well, right. If I don't do it, then it's still there. Even if I turn it invisible, it's still there. It's still taking up space. It's still doing its thing. If I set it to managed, it goes away. It's like it doesn't exist. So everything will try to resize around it as if it's not there, which is what we want, because otherwise the Go player will look like it's off to the left because the other part's still there. It's just invisible. But if we make it unmanaged when it's invisible, then everything will remain centered automatically. So this is a key reason why, and you will find yourself binding managed property to visible property a lot if you do any kind of fxml coding. So I just kind of wanted to show you this, and almost always it should happen here in the initialize, your bindings. You want to do it in initialize. So does anybody need my sheet that covered the last couple things we went over? All right. All right, so now what we need to do is actually make it invisible, because when they first come up, nobody won. So we're going to make one label. And it really doesn't matter if I do this before I manage it or not. It's either way, it's going to change both of them. It doesn't matter the order these two lines happen in. I just happen to do it this way because in my mind, I like it better. It seems cleaner in my mind, but it doesn't really matter. So now let's go ahead and make something happen when we do a win, when we have a win. So we'll go up here where we have this win thing, and what we'll do is we'll make it so turn label my spelling was any good, would be set. So we'll set the text on turn label to, instead of saying go player, we'll just make it straight up player. And maybe give it a space afterwards. So now we're going to change the text of turn label on a win to say player. And then what we want to do is we want to go ahead and make win label visible, or one label, sorry. All right. So we want to make this true, which actually win would work for that, but we'll just make it hard true. So now we got all that. Let's test it again and see what happens. All right, so go player X changes to O after I go. Add O. Still need to fix the sizing. As you can see now, it says player X has won, so we know somebody won. Hooray! Unfortunately though, we can still do all that other stuff. Okay, that sizing stuff is really bothering me, so I'm gonna fix it real fast by just going over here and making the preferred widths a bit bigger. Unfortunately, since I already duped them, I have to do each one individually. You guys might want to do this too if you're having the same issues. But that doesn't seem to actually be changing the width of it, so something else might be going on here that's actually messing me up. Let's see what it is. I bet you, yes, this is my problem. I'm actually limiting it here. So on the VBox, I need to go up to the VBox and make those use compute sizes. That's, if things don't resize right, a lot of times that's what it is, somewhere in its parent path. Looky here, we have another one. So we need to do it to these two. There we go. Now actually I bet you the 125 was perfect. But we're not going to change it back. So, dang it. So yeah, so a lot of times if you have weird sizing things, it's because somewhere in its parent tree something was sized funny. But I guarantee at this size we're not going to have any issues with it trying to resize. So we tested it, we saw that it runs, but you know, that's cool and all, but let's do some more stuff. So what I want to do now is I think I want to have something where it gives me a history of what people did in their turns. So I'm going to take a scroll pane and add that down here to the bottom. Interesting, never seen that happen before. So it decided it wants to be bigger than the main screen. Not sure how that works. Oh, yeah. So that's because my scroll pane came in. Wait, no. There should be another anchor pane inside of here. But it shouldn't be. Something is making it super wide. It's going past the anchor pane even. Ah, yes. Let's. Oh, yeah, how'd that happen?
You stretched something earlier, I think.
And it messed it all up. Okay. Well, that fixes me. So now we have a scroll pane down here. It has an anchor pane in it, but I'm just going to delete that. I don't need it. And instead, I really want a VBox to be in there. So I'm going to put a VBox in there. And I really want that VBox to be centered, but if I do, that's not what I wanted. And so also the H-bar policy, I never want to have an H-bar. I'm never going to need an H-bar. So we'll set that to never. V-bar I do want sometimes. And centering on the scroll pane. So why did I want something inside the scroll pane? The scroll pane is actually a really crappy container. You should never try to put stuff directly in a scroll pane because it doesn't have anything except for, do I need scroll bars? That's really all it handles. So you always want to have something that completely fills the scroll pane inside of the scroll pane that you actually are adding stuff to. So let's see, so we have to set this to fill the scroll pane. And it does say fill it. And then the scroll panes, again, because they are kind of crappy containers, we have to actually get the width and go ahead and put something like that in here for the VBox. I know this runs counter to what I said earlier, and there are ways around it, but trust me, that's the easiest way for right now. So we want to do that. Just the width though, so let's get rid of the height. And yes, okay. And actually I think I set that V-box to centered, but I want it to be top center. So make it top center alignment because we want things to just enter at the top and scroll down. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add a new FXML. Whoops. I'm going to save this real quick and then go back over here. We're going to go over here to source packages, or actually to this one. For you guys, it's probably named tic-tac-toe. Do new and then other down here. And JavaFX, empty FXML. So you guys got that? Right click, new, other, JavaFX, empty FXML. Hit next. We're going to name it, we'll name it history FXML. And all of that's good. Then we want to use a Java controller and it will automatically pick it as the same name. That's good. We don't have any style sheets, so we're not going to do that. So now we added another one called history, and we have 2 controllers and 2 FXML documents in here. Now the reason why we're doing this, normally I would not do this at all because this is such a simple thing we're going to be adding. But what I'm doing is I want to show you guys how to put an FXML inside of an FXML, which is actually a very tricky thing to do. A lot of people don't know how to do it. So I want to show you how to do that. Because there's really not a lot on the internet how to do this either. So that's why we're going to do this. So I'm going to now open up history FXML. And this one doesn't have any of the default stuff in it. It should be opening. It's going to take a little while because of all the stuff we got going on here.
Maybe close the other one.
Can close the other one, but I need it. It should open too. Okay, so I'm just going to open this one, and what I'm going to do is actually just add a label, which is a control, not a container. Gotta keep telling myself that. So I'm just going to add a label to it. Now, again, this is really simple. But I'm just doing this so I can show you guys how to add FXMLs inside of FXMLs. So what I do want to do though is I want to remove all of the size on this because I don't want something that large. And actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to go ahead and unwrap the anchor pane. So now it's only just the label. So we'll just unwrap the anchor pane. Now, now what we need to do though is we need to give this an ID. So we're going to call this history label or hist label. So it has an ID. We're going to save this. All right. So now what we have is we just have a label in there, and that's it. Very simple. Normally I wouldn't do this. I would just add labels using straight JavaFX, but I do want to show you guys how to do this. So we're probably not going to need this anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and close it, save resources. So then I'm going to go into the history controller. Okay, I'm in there, and I need to add the label first thing. So add FXML. Actually, do autocomplete because even though this is an FXML document, it doesn't import it. So if you notice when I did autocomplete, it actually imported the FXML. This one has bitten me a couple times. I've tried running it. I've been like, what do you mean you can't figure it out? It's all there. Well, it's not imported. So make sure the FXML portion gets imported. It's mount to private W. I like to use autocomplete because it handles my imports for me pretty well. We called that this label. All right. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to add just a public function here. So public void set label. So just a way to change the label that we want to, and we're going to need to have it give us the new label that we want. And really all we're going to do is take his label and set its text to new label. And that's really all the code we need in this, I think. Yes. Okay. Save this, and then we don't really need this anymore, but we'll just leave it up there for now. So, so now we have this second fxml. All it is a label, and it has a way to set the label to something. So now let's see. Uh-oh, I think I lost my. Okay. We're going to do a couple things in this controller real quick that we need, just some stuff. So what we need is we need a way also to, I'm not sure how I got out of order here, but we need a couple of booleans. So let's have, actually we need strings, sorry. We need to know what the last row was. And we'll just set that to empty, just initialize it to empty. And we need to know what the last column was. All right, so we got those. Now, in the interest of just keeping it fast, we're going to do this kind of ugly like. Go down here to our check row, and we're going to say, as part of this, now I know last row was yeah, this one said equals to it. Last row is equal to, but we don't want to just do a T, so we're gonna do a word top here. So what we're doing is we're gonna build a string to send to that, so that we know when they take a turn, we know kind of where they put it. So we're gonna do that, take that, cut it, and add it in front of the breaks on all of these. Change this one to middle, and make this one bottom. And we'll come down here and give the columns kind of the same treatment, except for we want it to be last column, and we'll set it to left. Center, and right. Not that much actually. We can actually end right after we do this part. I really want to get through this part, but yeah, let's just get through this part. I have a few more tricks I can add, but we'll just get through this part and then we'll call it a day. If you guys want to see what else I've done, then you can. Or I'll run the finished product and show you the code real quick if you'd like. Anyways, so back to this. So now we have a kind of strings that we can use to get that stuff. So now what we need to do is we need to call a new controller. So we're going to do that up here. So we're going to do it before we do the when condition, because reasons. This is just a good place. We need to put this in a try block. So we're going to make a try block, and actually I prefer having the IDE do that for me. Anyways, so what we're going to do, this is kind of tricky code, and this is a key part. If there's anything that you guys get from it, I want you to see this. So what you could do is you can have these things called fxml loaders, and you can see that in this, yeah, this one. You can see we had kind of the same thing going on to kick off the initial first one, but I want to show you that you can do that, you know, recursively even or whatever down inside of it. So we're gonna have fxml loader, and then there's a couple other tricks that you'll want. We'll call it loader. We'll make it a new fxml loader. Now, this part is a little bit tricky. So what we need to do now is we need to give it a place where it can find it. So really you can pick any of the things in this as long as what you want is in it. But the best way I think to do it is to just give it its own name. So in this particular case, that would be history controller. We do history fxml controller, and then we want to get that class. And then so this tells you that we're getting kind of its area in the class path for this, and we're going to do a get resource on that, and then we're going to get the fxml. So history fxml.fxml. So now we have this loader that we can use to actually load that fxml portion. Now from that, what we can do is we'll do a final node here, and we'll call this root. And this is the very first node in it. So in this case, it's just to label it, because you remember we erased the anchor pane. So we're getting the label, but it doesn't really matter what it is. We'll just call it a load. And that's from loader.load. So the load from the loader. Okay. I'm not sure why it's upset. Yeah, I gotta have a catch. Yeah, okay. Let's go ahead and add the catch clause automatically. There we go. So now what we can do with that is we can actually make a history controller over here. We can get the controller. We can also get that from the loader through get controller. So now we have access to the controller of the thing, because that's important. If you have the fxml, but you don't have the controller, you can't really do anything. So now we have access to the controller of the thing, so we can add stuff to it. For example, well, let's do, so to the controller, what we want to do is, if you remember, we made that set label class in there, so we'll access that, and we'll give it the string that we want, so player space plus so we're just kind of giving it a little string here that we want it to show. All right. So now we're telling the controller, hey, make your label that, right? Because that's what it is. Now, right before we do that, though, we probably want to add add this. So I don't think we did that. Back in here, did we give this a label? Nope, we did not. Nope, that's the control pane, VBox. Okay, back here we need to give this, so we'll give this history VBox ID. That is one thing, you have to click outside of it. You've probably caught me doing that a bunch of times, just out of habit. If you're typing something in on the right, you have to click outside of it before it registers or you can save it or anything like that. So, sorry, what I did is on the VBox, I added FX ID of history VBox and then saved it. And then we'll come back here and we'll add that VBox up here because we're going to need that up here. All right, hopefully that's the same name as I gave it, history VBox, I think so. All right, so we added it up here. Now what we're gonna do is come back down here where we were working and we have to actually add this to the history VBox, right? Because we want it to show up in there. So we'll put it in there. So to do that, you just do get children. And then do an add and add root. And there we go. So now if we test it again, hopefully everything runs and it tells you where you went. And then eventually it will turn into a scroll pane, which we're not going to get to. But anyways, so you can see that now we're each one of these is a separate FXML program that we're adding. And yes, this seems kind of simple for just a simple label, but I use FXML inside of FXML a lot. It actually comes in really handy. So it's something important and key to know. We're not gonna go any further. I do have, these are all the main cool things that I wanted to show you. I will go ahead and run what the finished project was, and I can show you or give you the code. Well, we can put the code on our website for the finished one. So I'll run the finished one here and show you other things that we were going to do, but we ran out of time, which I was afraid was going to happen. So one thing I did is if you win, then it should block you out from being able to keep playing. So I added that. Also, you might want to have a new game. So I'd have a start new game, and that, of course, keeps score and resets everything. So that's really the only things we didn't do. They're pretty simple, actually, and if somebody wants my sheets on how to do it, you're welcome to it. It's kind of archaic, but you're welcome to it. I have it at home. I also have it on Google Docs. I can link you in if you want. Does anybody have any questions or any comments or concerns? All right, well, thanks everybody for coming out to this trial run. Hopefully it was helpful. What do you guys think? Is this something that we should try to do in the future? Was it too basic? Was it too much? What do you guys think? Having you guys bring it and work along, was it beneficial at all?
As an old guy, I find Steam Builder in general, lots of IDEs, fall in the category of I've been given a list of directions. Turn right at the Big O, left at the Walmart, yada, yada, yada.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really easy to get lost. And it's not a map.
Right.
As an old guy, I like to see a map and follow it. So a little more mapping on the lecture, I think.
Okay.
I finally got lost,
Right. Okay.
Until that time, it was going great.
Right.
And I learned a lot from what you did.
Okay. Sounds good. Yeah, I was thinking about having handouts to give everybody for in case you got lost, but Then I looked at my notes, and my wife looked at my notes, and she was like, "You can't give that to anybody." So,
Well, I mean, some of it is, I think, the print size is kind of small.
yeah, we tried to make it bigger. Sorry, we messed with the projector for a good half hour this morning trying to get it somewhat nice. Yeah, I'm sorry. I could have made the print size bigger, and I probably should have. Done that. My bad. I'm sorry. I'll try to remember that next time. Mike even told me to do that, and I totally forgot. But the basic idea of doing this kind of hands-on thing is something we should try again in the future. Did you guys think it was beneficial at all?
Yeah, that's good.
All right, cool. Yeah, I mean, so part of it too is I knew some people wouldn't have laptops, and I didn't want them to be totally bored, so I did want to kind of work through all of it and not just have chunks of it automatically done, which is why I decided, large part of the reason why I decided not to have you guys download all the code beforehand, which is what was originally going to happen. We were just going to play around.
On AWS, so people could get in, just like, use our browsers to get into the AWS, and then have our own VMs there.
Since the technical director approves that.
Yeah.
Oh, no, can't do it.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for coming. I hope you did get something out of this. And thanks for being our guinea pigs on this. We really appreciate it.
That's what makes AWS legal by contracting through DISA.
And again, if you want the complete code, or if you want any of my notes or anything, just come ask me. I'll be happy to hook you up.
Yeah, I didn't get the last part at all. I was just trying to catch up with figuring out where did you put initialize? Was that in the controller, or was that in the init in the?
That's in the controller.
So it initializes automatically in both of the controllers. But I did have to.
Controller, okay, I admit I wasn't using enemies, but so did the controller implement or extend anything?
It implements initializable.
Okay.
You can do that. In fact, you should do that. You should use you can have it implement other stuff too, and that's beneficial sometimes.
Well, that's mine wasn't, so that's why I kept going, override method, and I couldn't get the initialize.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, it's not your fault. I was using,
Yeah, the Eclipse with Scene Builder, not really that impressive. NetBeans and Scene Builder are married really well together.
for a little while until the one takes it some different direction.
Thank you.
I was sort of about 46, how many steps are there?
There's 90 something, 92. Yeah, the hard part of setting this up was, and I'm still recording, but the hard part of setting this up was actually stopping when because what would happen is I'd get to writing the code and I'd be like, okay, and then I'd be like, oh crap, I haven't written down anything about what I did. And I have to go back and be like, what did I do? What are the steps I took? And then trying to follow it here, because I could have probably written this faster, but it would have been totally different. I would have hit a lot of bugs. So I was trying to follow my notes, but I kept getting lost in them. But yeah. Where'd Mike go? I don't know how to.
Catherine, coming back.
Guess we just hit stop.